Well, what are you doing late summer, oddly, around August? Come on down.
I might be climbing a mountain.
Yeah, exactly. Come on down to Denver. I don't know how good a shape you are in now, but it's going to give you time. So get in shape. And you have my contact info. So come on down. I will plan a 14er for us, and you'll get a chance to experience. You get up to 13,000, and all of a sudden, oh my goodness, this is hard. And yeah, let's put that in the book.
Well, yeah, hey, why not, right? That's awesome, James. That's awesome.
Welcome to the Audacious Living Podcast, hosted by my man, Audley Stephenson, the Odd Man.
Greetings and salutations. Welcome to the Audacious Living Podcast, where our goal is to help you live your best audacious life ever. I'm thrilled to have you join me here as we explore the power of audacity in our everyday lives. It's always a pleasure to be here sharing insights and experiences that can inspire and empower you, and I really appreciate of this. And I also appreciate you taking time out of your day to be here, so thank you. Now, imagine a gardener, nurturing a diverse garden. Each plant is unique in its own right, requiring different amounts of sunlight, water, and care. A good gardener doesn't simply command the plants to grow. Instead, they inspire growth by providing the right conditions, tending to each plant's individual needs, and patiently encouraging their development. Similarly, effective leadership is not about wielding authority, but about inspiring and motivating others to flourish. Just as a small, consistent acts of care can transform a garden, small acts of leadership can significantly impact team dynamics and employee engagement. The potential for greatness often lies in overcoming personal challenges and adversities, much like a plant pushing through the soil to reach the sun. Today, I'm delighted to welcome James Robbins to the podcast. James is an accomplished leadership expert. He's an author and a mountaineer. With over 2 decades of experience in leadership development, James has dedicated his entire career to helping leaders inspire and empower their teams. James is also an author in his book 9 Minutes on Monday, which is a new release. It's coming out in August. That's focusing on personal growth. His unique insights into the interplay of leadership, personal challenges, and team dynamics make him an invaluable guest for this conversation. James' expertise in leadership and personal development is perfectly aligned with our discussion today. His experience in both the corporate world and as a mountaineer provide a unique and fresh perspective on overcoming challenges and inspiring others. And his insights will definitely help us understand how small acts of leadership can lead to significant changes in team engagement as well as success. So now that we've got the table set, let's turn to our conversation with James. Enjoy. Hey, James, thank you for joining me here today on the Audacious Living Podcast. I appreciate you for taking the time to do this, my friend.
Audley, so great to be here. I want to know, what is audacious living to you? Not to flip and me become the host, but I would love to hear that answer.
Yeah, well, it for me, it very much became it was a journey, and it was a journey back to self, because what I didn't realize when I started going, oh, what is this thing all about, is the reason why I gravitated to this thing called audaciousness, because it was a part of me already. It was inside of me already. I was living audacious, not even knowing it, no label attached to it. I was doing the things that I loved. I was taking chances. I was taking risks, had a little bit of courage. Didn't always know what was going to happen around the corner, but I took the chance anyways. And if it didn't work out, I said, okay, now I've learned something for the next time. I'll try again, better down the road. But it's really just sort of living your path on your own journey. The theme of audacity, it's so individualized and so personal. It truly, truly, truly is, James. My pathway is littered with challenges and obstacles and pitfalls that you've got no idea about because they're not yours; they're mine. And the most beautiful thing about that is when I get to the other side. Well, often I've said on the other side of these adversities, these pitfalls, these challenges. That's where individual greatness lies. And so it's really what persevering and moving forward on that path with as audacious as we can be, having the boldness, the courage, and the bravery to live our lives the way they were intended. So I may give you a long-winded answer there, but I hope you get the gist.
Oddly, it's like you have a slight Canadian accent. Maybe you don't, but it just sounds like it.
Well, I mean, it only makes sense. I'm based out of Toronto, Canada, so that makes sense.
There we go. I thought I caught that. I'm like, I know that accent.
That's funny. Yep. There you go. But yeah, that's kind of what it's been. So I think, the conversation that we have on this podcast is really trying to encourage all of those things, James. It really, truly, truly is, because I believe that each and every single one of us has that spirit of audaciousness inside, whether we're conscious about it or not, whether we awoken it or not, it's there. And so for you, you're as a leadership expert, as well as a mountain climber, I mean, some would say, wow, that's pretty daring, that's pretty brave, that's pretty audacious. Well, that's what you're called to do, and that's what you do, right? And I think it's so important that we answer our individual calling. And so I've talked a lot. How about we invite you in, give our listeners a better understanding of what you are and the work you do, and what's got you to the point that you're at now?
Yeah, I grew up on a small cattle ranch in the foothills of the Rocky Mountains, actually in Alberta. So, still a long ways from you, but anyway, that's where I grew up. Very simple upbringing, gave me a simple frame of life, but also I grew up in a ranching community where people were worked hard.
Mm-hmm.
There was a certain ethics there. And, you didn't try to do anything too fancy, just get the job done. I ended up going to college, and then I became a preacher for a while, which I didn't expect. So I was a preacher for a number of years, and I began to feel a little bit restless, and I wanted to do something more entrepreneurial. And so I began teaching leadership in the not-for-profit space, then over into the for-profit space. And, all my time in ministry gave me the hours on stage, which helped me polish, presentations, polish that craft. And I just built a business from there. Wrote a book in 2012 on leadership framework. It's called 9 Minutes on Monday. And, for the last, I guess, 20 years now, that's what I've been doing, helping leaders lead better.
And what made you land on that, James? I mean, the idea of focusing on leadership and then was there a gap that you saw, or what was happening for you to point in that direction?
I'd love to say it was that strategic, but oddly, it's literally was, how can I make some money?
I get it.
It doesn't take me a lot of time. This was the erroneous part of my thinking. So, and this goes a bit to your description there about an audacious life and living, in alignment. And I was in ministry and I enjoyed helping people. So I enjoyed that, but I also felt like, you know what I hated? I hated getting paid by the church. It was just an awkward feeling for me. Part of that was my upbringing, but when you're in the ministry, especially if you're in a smaller church, like every time you get paid, it's basically like all your friends pitching in to pay you. And it's just a weird feeling. Like you go hang out their houses watching Super Bowl party, and then I don't know. That's how I viewed it. And I get it. I get it. Okay. So I started to think like, what can I do to make money, but I could do ministry for free? And that's when I began to understand people that were professional speakers were making more money than I made in a month on one single presentation. So I thought, oh, that's the ticket. And then it was really like, well, what should I talk about? And I bounced around a couple different ideas, but then I thought, well, I do leadership training all the time. Why don't I modify that and continue to teach leadership? Because the one thing about when you are a leader especially in any not-for-profit, to be honest, it's an amazing training ground for leadership, because you will typically have some kind of paid staff, maybe only a few, but then you have this massive group of volunteers. You have to motivate. You can't pay them. You usually can't fire them. There's all sorts of people problems you got to sort through. And it's like leadership development on steroids.
Mm.
And years later, I would end up sitting down with a mentor of mine, John Maxwell, and we had the same conversation about that and how he agreed that, yeah, it's a great training grounds for leadership.
Yeah, yeah. Leadership for me, it's probably like my second favorite topic. It truly is, and the part around leadership that have always excited me and always really inspired me is the ability to make a difference, have a positive impact. And um, I remember very early on, first hearing about what leadership was and had no concept of it. But then when understanding what it was, realized I knew what it was back when I first heard about it, if that makes sense, right? And the way the story goes, I was in I must have been 12 or 13 years old. I was in one of these city day camps, and they take you around these excursions across the city for the summertime, like the summer outing is kind of a deal. And we were mixed with a different age groups of children, and we are all over the place. And you had the camp counselors, obviously, but then you had us and the kids. And there's one little boy, I believe his name was Matthew. I don't remember his exact name. And for whatever reason, Matthew kept wanting to hold my hand as we walked through these little sites and excursions, what are these tours. And I just kind of went with him, like, come on, Matthew, let's go. And I just, I took him along with me. And I remember one of the counselors literally said to me, yeah, you're showing some really good leadership skills. And I had no idea what that meant because in my mind, I felt like I was babysitting. That's what it felt like. Like I was babysitting this little kid. He was no problem, but that's what it felt like in the moment. And it wasn't until years later that when I start to understand, what the concept of leadership, where it's all positive, influencing people and leading people to where we want to go collectively, is when it made sense. And I actually went back to that story of little Matthew, because that's how leadership can present itself in such simple forms. Like it doesn't have to be these big grandiose sort of things and these swooping things that, oh my gosh, it impacted the world. They can be small and tiny, but still be very much impactful. And that's when I really understood the gravity of what leadership is.
For sure. And to your point about making a difference, and for anyone who's listening, if you're a business owner or you're a manager at work, the influence you have on an employee is the largest influence in their life outside of their personal life. Like you have more influence in their life quality than the CEO of the company does.
Sure. Yeah.
And there's just lots of research to back that up. So yeah, when someone decides to become a better leader, even if it's a 10% better leader, they just improve the quality of the lives of everyone they lead.
Yeah, yeah, they truly do. And there's a quote, and I am going to butcher it, but it was essentially says, if your actions can inspire, motivate, or influence someone, you're a leader, right? It's through our actions. We oftentimes think I think that the old leadership framework was like, because I'm in this position, you got to respect me and do what I say, and that command and control thing. And I'm so glad that we've moved away from that. I know a little bit still exists, but we've moved further away, and there's understanding that the leadership is part of the entire collective. It's what we do together, as opposed to what I'm doing up on the pedestal and you guys are just doing what I tell you to do.
For sure. And you're right, that still exists. There's pockets of that around. But yeah, thankfully, as we've learned more about leadership and influence and motivation, companies are getting better and better at this.
Yeah, yeah. What do you find? Or the companies or leaders, what are they coming to the most to talk about, or they are needing help with, or what are the biggest challenges? What are you seeing?
So what I see is that when you look at the number of employees in a company, and the challenge is untapped potential, because a lot of people don't even realize that that's what they're missing. Like it's easy to see the problem that you see, or you have an engagement survey and you notice, scores are lower here or there. But what a lot of CEOs don't see is that there's this massive amount of potential that's not tapped into. So I'll give you an example. I was in Edmonton, I think last year, and I was speaking to all the leaders of a large mining company. And this mining company is about 3,000 people. And so, but I'm just with the leaders, and I get with them, and I opened up by saying, what if I told you that I could give you 300 more employees that you didn't have to pay and were already trained? Would you want them? Oh, of course. They're like, yes, exactly. Well, how would I do that? I would get your 3,000 employees 10% more engaged, which that's actually not hard to do. And that is like adding 300 more employees because, like, Audley, think about this. You and I, we can come to work on any given day, and the gap between me at my worst day and me at my best day is actually massive, right? The chances I take, the courage I have, the difficult conversations I will lean into versus down here, I don't want to talk to anyone. I just, when's quitting time? And that massive gulf exists within every employee in your organization.
Yeah.
What's going to make the difference of where they go up and down that ladder? 70% of that is actually influenced by the leader.
Incredible. And I'll take it a step further. That influence, the thing that influences is a very tiny act. It doesn't, again, it's not as small. So I'll give you an example. I think if you go to most people, and I'll dare to say even everyone, and if you were to say, identify your favorite teacher, everyone will be able to say, oh, Miss So-and-so did this, or Mr. So-and-so, they'll identify their favorite teacher. If you take it a step further and ask, well, what did they do? It'll oftentimes be things like, oh, they encouraged me. Oh, they listened to me. Oh, they helped me. Things that are very small and insignificant. In fact, take it a step further. If you went to that teacher and say, hey, do you remember that time that you helped little Johnny and he did this? They may not even remember because it's that small of an act that is a part of just what they do. And that's what leaders have the ability to do. Through the small, seemingly insignificant acts, they do have a lot of power.
Yeah, that's so good, Audley. That's so good because I've asked hundreds, thousands now in workshops of people and leaders, and I'll say, I want you to think about a leader who had a big impact on your life, who really inspired you.
Right.
And then the same question, what was it about them? What did they do that inspired you? And so we'll collate all the answers and I'll get them up on a whiteboard, and they all really just fall into a few buckets. But what I do is I get them to look at the list and I say, what do you notice about this list? And basically 80% of it is what your grandmother taught you. Has nothing to do with getting an MBA, has nothing to do with where you went to school.
Right.
It really comes down to who you are and how you treat people. And in fact, of all those, like literally thousands, I'm sure, of responses, they fall into 4 general categories.
Okay.
One of them is the leader was some sort of an example for me.
Yeah.
Secondly was they cared about me. And so much research on this, the simple acts of being genuinely interested in people, in your staff, knowing something about them, knowing, the name of their spouse or their kids' names, just so you can be interested, knowing what's a favorite hobby of theirs outside of work, right? They cared about me. Thirdly, they pushed me. We actually want our leaders to push us and challenge us so that we can grow and accomplish things. And fourthly, they supported me in that process. It's like those 4 things it's like the DNA of leadership. And to your point, Audley, which was great, that it's the little things. It's the little things done repeated. And I like to make this analogy, if you're going to climb Mount Everest, it's going to take about 60,000 vertical steps. But the problem with each of those steps is they are small, they're insignificant, so we don't value them. Yet it's the sum total of 60,000 that get us to the top. And great leadership is the tiny things done consistently. It's showing up, it's being genuinely interested, it's showing up, coaching and helping them get better. It's showing up, recognizing great work so that we reinforce it so that it'll be done again. And the leaders who can be consistent in the tiny things, they're the ones that everybody wants to work for.
I just think of how impactful more leaders could be if they fully knew that going into the leadership role. I've seen lots and lots of examples where an individual is mastered job A, and because of their mastery of job A, they're placed into a leadership position with the expectation that they will flourish the same way they did in job A, not recognizing those two totally different jobs altogether. And not to say that person couldn't figure it out, but it'll take them some time, right? It'll take them some time to get up to speed and get understanding and maybe fully understanding what their role is. And it's during that, that period in which they're learning is maybe, you just hope they don't do too much damage, right? During that time that they're learning, right? But it is a totally different job. And I just think that if more understood some of these concepts going in, how much better of a difference they can make and effective in their roles.
To your point, you think let's use a mountain analogy. Imagine you signed up for a mountaineering expedition and you're going up and you've got a guide, and right, they are going up with you, guiding you along the way. Well,
Yep.
that guide's in a leadership position, but they didn't start there. They started out exactly where you are now, climbing a mountain. But they were good at it and they loved it enough that someone said, "Hey, why don't you become a guide?" But here's the thing, an amazing shift must happen in the mind of that guide, because once they assume that responsibility, it's actually no longer about the mountain. Though having a knowledge of the mountains is important,
Yep.
success now for them isn't about climbing. It's about, can they move people up mountains? And if they can't learn to move people up mountains, they will fail as a mountain guide. So it's back to the old adage, I guess it was Marshall Goldsmith, what got you here won't get you there.
Yeah.
It's the same thing for many people. Like all of us come to leadership pretty much through the same door. And it's the door you just talked about. I remember how I got into leadership. First of all, was I showed up at work and all my bosses above me had quit. So they just called me and said, "Hey, you're in charge now." Like it had nothing to do with my ability, even in the job. It was just that I was a warm body. But most people come to leadership because you're respected, you worked hard, you were reliable, and someone said, "Okay, you're going to take on more responsibility." But then we're given the responsibility to lead humans, that's complexity. So this is why every leader really needs to prioritize. I'm going to learn how to influence people. I'm going to learn how to get the best out of people. I'm going to learn how to be the best leader I can, because it's your scoreboard. And once that title, manager or VP or whatever it is on your resume, you're probably locked in for life.
Yeah.
Right? Like you are going to be in a leadership position for the rest of your life. And if your scoreboard is actually the success of your people. I mean, think about that.
Yeah.
This is the unfair part of leadership. If your people are not succeeding, then you're not successful. I'm not saying it's fair. It just is what it is.
Yeah,
and so if that's my new scoreboard, then I want to focus my attention and energy on helping them be as successful as I need them to be. But I get it. When we're busy, we just want to get stuff done. Every leader's had those days where they think, I hope my staff doesn't find me just so I can get things done, right? But it's the wrong way to think.
I remember once being appointed in a leadership role similar to the fashion that you described, where you looked around and you're the only one in the room, and okay, you're it, kind of a thing. And I remember I was in the role 2 years, just under 2 years before I figured out how to replace myself in the job I was doing previously, because I was still trying to manage what I was doing what I'm supposed to be doing. And it took but it does, you said shift. It does take a mind shift to really understand what the role should be. And so, I thank you. I want to thank you for making that point. You've alluded to mountains a couple times here, James, and you're a mountaineer expert. I want to say you're an expert because I haven't climbed a mountain and you have, and so you're an expert in my books. I wonder if you can talk about how mountain climbing sort of fits into the leadership framework.
Well, thank you for the compliment about mountaineering excellence, but you would not want me to be your guide. So anyways, I think for anyone who's climbed a mountain, you'll totally understand what I'm saying. And if you haven't climbed a mountain, I encourage you to put that on your bucket list. Doesn't even have to be a big mountain, but let it be something that's difficult. Get out to the Rockies, get out to wherever you are. There's always, do it on a vacation. But there's something about mountain climbing. I live in Colorado now. I'll climb up 14ers with my daughter. There's something about climbing a mountain, at least for me, that you are forced to face down the weakness inside of you that comes up. And sometimes it's out of fatigue, it could be out of high altitude, but just where everything in your body is like, why are we doing this? Let's just go down. Here's the 50 reasons why it makes sense to quit and turn around. And it's a real test of, I've got to figure out how to take control of me. And I am going to reassert myself that I am the boss here. And this is what we're going to do. And at least for me, that has never been easy. And of all the mountains I've climbed, I guess now I expect it. So maybe that makes it a bit easier, but it's still, I mean, the brain is just so amazing at its ability to slick talk you into mediocrity, right? Because it wants to get rid of its pain.
Yeah.
So I see mountaineering more from the perspective of, individual, like you up against your limits. Of course, there's a team dynamic.
Sure.
When you are roped together on a mountain, it really puts a new dynamic on team. Like when you're physically roped, and it's because that it drops off 1,000 feet over on this side and another 1,000 feet on this side, and you're on a narrow ridge, and then like, if the guy in front of me does something stupid, it's going to impact me. But also if I do something stupid, and it just really dials you in, even to know that the pace you climb, if you're going too slow, the rope gets tight, and then the guy in front of you starts pulling you up a mountain, right? It's okay for you, but it doesn't do a lot for team morale. So there's this idea of sharing the load and also carrying your weight, and also helping one another out. I've had people on expedition before come back and say, "Here, I'm going to take your pack." And I've argued with them, no, I'll do it. And they're like, no, like, you're basically slowing us down. I'm going to take your pack. And so, okay. And it's humbling, but it's also, that's what teams do.
I've heard other mountain climbers talk about maybe the misconception as it relates to reaching the top of the mountain, right? So you invest this time, this energy to take this journey up the top of the mountain, and at the peak of the mountain, it's lonely, right? It's not much happening up there because the real value was the journey up that mountain. And that, if there's an expectation that the peak will give you the be all end all, you're actually mistaken. It was never about the peak. It was about the journey. I wonder if you had some input on that.
That's a great insight. I have found, not to be a pessimist, but I have found that to be true in that when you get to the summit, you are not there long. Like, you go up there, usually the weather's terrible or it's windy. The view is spectacular, but what makes it spectacular is the journey that got you there. Not to sound like a metaphor, but truly, if someone just, there's a 14,000 down here in Colorado called Pikes Peak, and you can drive right to the top. So it's one thing to drive to the top and look out. It's another thing if you have to climb that thing and look out. There's something about the investment that we had to put into anything translates into value. I take a mother who carried a baby in her womb for 9 months, then went through incredible pain to have this child. And in that moment, there's no comparison between dad and mom of who has invested more at that point, right? The mother, and there's such a strong bond. So I think in the mountains, I'm reminded of last year I climbed a mountain with my daughter. It's called Mountain Massive, and it's one of the highest here in Colorado. And it was so difficult. We almost quit. And by the time we got to the top, we weren't even happy. Like, we were just drained and exhausted. And we took one photo and we didn't even look happy in it, right? Which then brings up the question, why would I even do that? But it's the entire cycle. Then on the way down, you get back to camp and now it's the story. It's the story that adds dimension to your life. So I think mountains aren't just about climbing up so you can get to the top and have a view. It's so much more.
The idea of mountain climbing, is that something that you always wanted to do, or or was something that developed?
I mean, I grew up in the foothills, so I could see the mountains every day from my house.
Okay.
On the ranch. I began scrambling some peaks west of Calgary, I think back in college. It wasn't until later, sort of like a midlife crisis, when I decided to sign up for a high altitude expedition. And I went and did that. And that was a great experience. It really challenged me. But there's something about the mountains. There's something about the mountains, for me and for many people, it's almost like a spiritual place. The mountains are, to me, it's this funny juxtaposition of something that's terrifying and dangerous and can kill you, and yet at the same time something comforting when you're in them. Maybe it's like you feel like you're surrounded and you're not exposed, but it's kind of the play of both of those things.
Yeah, listen, I can see that being the case, and the exhilaration of it too, is an excitement of sort of being somewhere or attempting something like that. And there's much to be said about just the satisfaction, pride, and joy. I did this, right? Like that sense of accomplishment means something, right? So I think that all sort of feeds into that.
Well, what are you doing late summer, Audley, around August? Come on down.
I might be climbing a mountain.
Yeah, exactly. Come on down to Denver. I don't know how good a shape you are in now, but it's going to give you time. So get in shape. And you have my contact info. So come on down. I will plan a 14er for us, and you'll get a chance to experience, you get up to 13,000 and all of a sudden, oh my goodness, this is hard. And yeah, let's put that in the book.
Well, yeah, hey, why not, right? That's awesome, James. That's awesome.
And for all you Audley listeners and fans of his show, hold him accountable to this, because it's going to be a great experience for him.
Well, how can I not now? I tell you, that's awesome. No, well, hey, that would be audacious of me at the very least, right? So I got to hold true to my brand.
For sure.
James, this has been awesome. I really do appreciate the time that we spent here, and the insights are fantastic. And really, when you look at, again, I know we spent a lot of time early on talking about the impact of leaders and the influence that they can have. There's so much power in that. There really, really is. And quite frankly, I'd go so far to say that that's the real difference maker. And if more leaders understood that maybe earlier on in the journey, and not to say that there's those that don't, I'm not suggesting that, because there are those that do understand that and get it. But man, what a difference that you can make, and not just the professional, because as much as we're talking about in the professional context, in our personal lives as well, you can have a difference, and you don't need a title to be a leader to make the kind of changes that others can make.
Yeah, exactly. Audley, I'm gonna take our photo.
Awesome.
Okay. We're gonna mark this moment. I'm gonna post it on LinkedIn also.
Let's do it.
About you committing to come down, climb a mountain.
Okay.
The only way you can get out of it, Audley, now is if the Maple Leafs win the Stanley Cup. I'll let you out. But apart from that, you have to come do it, man. Come on down. We'll have a great time. Anyone listening, if you want to come, contact Audley.
And we're here.
We'll set it up.
Yeah. Well, no, go ahead. We'll. I will commit to that. It's funny. I was so funny actually. I was just sort of thinking about what travel I want to do. I like to travel a few times a year, and I was thinking about what I wanted to do, and Denver didn't come up on the list, but it sounds like it's on the list now. So
for sure, I'm waiting for you.
For listeners that want to learn more about you, connect with you directly, James, where can we send them?
You can go to jamesrobbins.com if you are interested in leadership help, leadership tips, a lot of free stuff there. And if you are into personal growth, which I know you are because you listen to Audley's show, then I want to let you know about my new book that comes out in August. And you can go to the website. It's called iwillclimb.com. iwillclimb.com. Go ahead and go there, and you can find out as everything happens.
Right. What we will make a point of doing is ensuring that those details are captured in the show notes. James, this has been awesome. I've gotten more out of this than I thought I ever would have. I just thought I was getting a podcast interview, and now we've got a climbing expedition, which is great. Thank you for the insights. Thank you for the invitation. And thank you for the lessons. But more importantly, thank you for being a guest on the Audacious Living Podcast.
Thanks, Audley.
Back we are here on the podcast. We heard from James in our conversation. He shared some profound insights about the nature of leadership. One key point that certainly resonated with me was the idea that effective leaders prioritize the success of people, recognizing that their own success is intrinsically tied to the success of the individuals on their teams. James emphasized that leadership is not just about authority, it's about creating an environment where individuals feel inspired to reach their potential. Personally, I loved how James connected the concept of leadership to his experience in mountaineering, illustrating that the journey, much like the climb up a mountain, is filled with challenges that can either hinder or elevate our collective success based on how we support one another. If you want to dive deeper into James' work or connect with him directly, be sure to check out the show notes for the contact details. He definitely offers up some incredible resources that I highly encourage you to explore. Additionally, James, again, I mentioned earlier, he has an exciting book coming out in August that really focuses on personal growth. And again, you can find all those details at his website, iwillclimb.com, where you'll also find free resources that can help you on your leadership journey. I'm committed to climbing. August will be a busy month. It looks like I'm committed to climbing a mountain as well. So we'll stay tuned to hear more about that. Thank you for joining me on this episode of the Audacious Living Podcast. I hope you found value in our conversation today and it inspires you to embrace your own audacious journey. If you've enjoyed this episode, I encourage you to like, follow, subscribe, or share if you haven't already done so, because that's what helps our community grow and bring in even more people. Your support means the world to us, and together we can inspire even more individuals to live their best audacious lives. Until next time, stay safe, be kind, show love to one another, and be audacious.
You've been listening to the Audacious Living Podcast, hosted by Audley Stephenson. If you enjoyed what you heard, be sure to like, subscribe, and share. Until next time, be audacious.